You will use Python menus in a lot of your projects. I'm going to show you how to create a Python menu at 5 different levels of difficulty. At level 1, I'm going to show you how to create a Python menu using if, elif, else. At level 2, I'm going to show you how to use a loop controlled by a Boolean. At level 3, I'm going to show you how to use the new match function to create the menu. And at level 4 and 5, I'm going to show you how to utilize procedures and functions. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Level 1 would be for beginner programmers in Python who would use print statements and then control a program flow with if, elif, and else. Typically, you would start with print and then maybe the title, and then you would print out the menu options as well. We would then use input to get the input from the user. Okay, so I'm going to pause here because this is the biggest mistake beginners make. Let me just run this program, and then you enter a number, fine. And then the code would continue with the if, elif, else. But let me show you a problem straight away, which is really easy to solve. What happens if you don't enter a number? The program crashes, it breaks. You are making work hard for yourself by asking for an integer value. You are never going to perform a calculation on this input. So it does not have to be an integer. Do not use integers for variables which you are not going to use for calculations, regardless as to whether they are numbers or not. Let's see what happens this time. The computer doesn't crash if we use a string. Okay, so let's deal with if, elif, else. If what you've just typed in is the same as 1 in speech marks because it's a string, then do this. I'm just going to print out option 1 worked, just to check that we are in the right area. So let's do Control S, F5, enter an option 1. Option 1 worked. Brilliant. Now we can crack on with the remainder of the options. If you are lazy/efficient like me, you can copy and paste a chunk of stuff here. Be careful. This is where noobs make mistakes, especially if you think you're clever like that and you go a bit too quick. You're not going to get the indentation right. You're going to miss off changing some numbers somewhere. So just be really careful and accurate if you are going to copy and paste. All right, let's test this. For level 2, we are going to put our menu in a loop. So when we get to the end of the program, it jumps back up to the start of the menu and then goes through it all again. So you have a menu, you pick an option, you do your thing, jumps back out, goes back up, shows you the menu again. You can pick a different option, do the thing, go back up and do the menu, hit 9, and it exits the program. I noticed in my notes I said I would talk about strings in this section, but I've already mentioned that in level 1, where I said you would only use integers if you were going to do a calculation with that variable. Okay, how do I turn this into a loop? What I want it to do is repeat until something happens. Now, I want it to repeat until this option has been chosen. So it's going to keep going round and round and round and round until menu choice equals 9. Now, there are lots of different ways to do this. Let me show you one quick way, and then I want to show you the way that I prefer, because personally, I think it's less messy. So what I need to do is put all of this into a while loop. Let me show you what I mean. While 1 is the same as 1 colon. Now, when I press enter, you'll notice that it's indented. This is great, but we haven't dealt with getting out of the loop. We can just pick the options and it will go on forever, and we can do whatever happens when we go into those numbers, even if we make a mistake. But when we do 9, we haven't dealt with that. What a lot of people do is when they pick 9, they just add a break command. Now, break kind of pulls the rug out from underneath the code, just kicks you out of the loop. I don't like using them. I mean, it's fine in something simple like this, but I find students use it as a way to get out of tricky situations that they don't understand. They find themselves stuck in a loop. Maybe they've gone into a nested version, or they're in a calling a function or something, and they think it should escape, and they can't understand the logic as to why it hasn't escaped. So they just chuck in a load of breaks and hope it gets them back out, and it does quite often in one situation. And then when they run the program again and they go through a different logic route, it doesn't get them out. They don't understand their own program. That's why I discourage the use of using breaks. But as you can see, it's really quite neat. Keep doing this menu forever because 1 equals 1. It's an infinite loop. But when you hit 9, just pull the rug out and it just kicks you out of the loop. Let me show you my preferred method. I'm going to introduce a Boolean variable called keep going. You can call it whatever you want. Now I must set that to be something before we start. So keep going is true. So while keep going is the same as true, do the loop. And instead of break, to get out of the loop, we flip the variable to be false. So keep going is true. Do the loop while keep going is true. So it will do the loop first time. And it will do the loop every time until you hit 9. And then it'll kick you out because we flipped it to false. And there we go. You can also, if you understand that, just say while keep going. You don't have to say while keep going is the same as true. If you say while keep going, that is exactly the same as true. While keep going is the same as true. So while keep going is the same as true. Let me show you that. And again, 9 will exit it. And there's our basic menu system, which you can copy and paste and use in most of your programs that need a menu. That takes us to level 3, match. Very recently, Python has introduced its own version of switch case. It was released in version 3.10, and it works a little bit differently from switch case, but for something simple like this, it's pretty much the same, just slightly different words. If you don't know what switch case is, or match in Python, it is what it sounds like, match. It creates a perfect match. So if you're using if, elif, else, you could use if menu choice is greater than something or less than something. With match, there's none of that. It has to be an exact match. It has to be exactly the same. So you could say if menu choices matches 1, okay? Because of the inaccuracies when you're dealing with decimal numbers, reals, floats, it doesn't match decimal numbers. It doesn't match floats. It only matches integers and strings. Does it match Booleans? I don't know. I haven't tested. That's obviously a lot more restrictive than using if, elif, else. So why would you use match? It looks a bit neater. Yeah, it looks a bit neater. I prefer it for something like this. It is a little bit simpler. Okay, so let's jump in. What is the syntax for match? Well, what we're going to do here is we're going to take our if, elif, else statements, and I'm going to rewrite them as match so you can see the difference. Okay, so the first difference is we say match menu choice. So we're telling it what to match. Then I press my colon and then I say case 1. So if it's matched 1, do something. And what I do is, let me just check my indentation. What I do is I print out option 1 has worked. So match menu choice with. If it matches 1, print option 1 has worked. If I match exactly with 2, option 2 worked. If I match perfectly with 3, option 3 worked. If I match with 9, I want to exit the loop, don't I? So here is where I would flip my keep going variable to be false. Now, how do we deal with that was not one of the options, our else here? Okay, let me just cut that. This is our default. We use the underscore. So this will run when there hasn't been a perfect match. Let's see if I've got that right. Ta-da! This is level 4, procedures. Well done for getting this far. If your program is going to be even reasonably complex, you need to be writing in subprograms. There are lots of reasons why, which I explain in a very, 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 very good video on this channel called Subprograms. Go and watch that first if you haven't watched it, and then come back. At least watch the first bit, okay? It's really important that you understand subprograms, and then I'm going to show you here. So you go and do that. We'll wait. We'll wait. We'll wait. Go. We'll wait. Watch it first. It's good. It's really good. It's really good. Go. We'll wait. Oh, they're going to take ages, aren't they? Let's crack on. Let me create a procedure to just display the menu, and I am going to call it display menu. So while keep going, I need to call display menu. Okay. Now, what would normally happen in real life, you wouldn't just say option 1 worked. You would have a load of code underneath this that would be really quite complicated. And then if you've got that for every single case, every single match, that's going to be problematic. Your code is going to be really, 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 really long and complicated. And this nice laid out case isn't going to make any difference. It's just going to look a mess. So what's going to happen is when we match 1, instead of doing our code here, we're just going to jump up and have our option 1 in a subprogram. It's going to be self-contained in a subprogram. Let me show you. And here, instead of printing this out, we are just going to call option 1. So now we display our menu, we ask them for a number, we match the number. If the number is 1, it jumps up to option 1 here, and it does our code for option 1. Let me just check that. Yeah, it worked. So now I'm sure you've worked out that the best way to do it next, and I would recommend that you do this with all of your menus. Get the structure in place first. Just get it to print out the titles. Get it working before you start rolling your sleeves up and getting into the complex code. Get the structure of your program sorted first, so it all works logically, and then do the hard bits. And because they're in subprograms, you can do the hard bits one subprogram at a time. Okay, so I'm just going to blast through this and create subprograms for option 2, option 3, option 4, and so on. Let's add some comments as it's starting to get a bit more complex, and we don't want it to get messy. And then we just call the procedure, and it just jumps up to that subprogram and does its thing up there. Okay, let's test that. Let's pick a random number. 5 worked, 3 worked, 2 worked, 1 worked, 9 should exit. Let's just do our mess up first, and then 9 should exit. Ta-da! And that brings us to functions. What I'm about to show you is completely pointless because I am perfectly happy with the way that this code is laid out. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. What we've got here is great. If a grade 9 student presented this to me, I would be very, very happy. Before I show you the function bit, let me just show you something fancy to tidy up this main menu. Again, I am perfectly happy with the way the main menu is printed out, but this is just an option for you for demonstration purposes. We can get rid of all of these ugly print commands and put in ugly backslashes instead. Let me show you how we do that. We can have multi-lines, so clearly this is going to break our program straight away, so stick with me. If I get rid of all of these, and all of these, like that. Nice. So that's obviously going to break our program. Oh, well, kind of. You can clearly see they're all on one line. All right, let's fix that. The way that we fix that is we print out a \n on the end of our text, but still within the string. \n means new line. There we go. So we just need this \n all of the way down. Completely pointless. It makes it slightly easier to add new options and move them around, but not much really. Maybe it's a little bit more readable. Anyway, let's have a look at functions. Again, this is completely pointless. Instead of having this here, surely it would make sense to ask them for the option here when we've just printed out the menu. Not really. A function should do one thing, and if a function's purpose is to display the menu, it was perfectly happy the way it was before. Anyway, we've got menu choice, input, enter a number. What we need to do is we need to send menu choice back to the main program. I'm not going to explain why. You need to look at that program about subprograms, functions and procedures, if this does not make sense to you. And then what we do here is we just capture what they've entered. So I can call it menu choice, even though it's a different variable. Again, watch that video. Menu choice equals the result of display menu. And we didn't send it anything. Very, 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 very slightly neater. Genuinely not worth the hassle. I preferred it the other way. But at least you get to show off that you know how functions work. If you found that useful, please consider a cheeky like and a cheeky subscribe. That's about it. See ya.